Let's get started with our public safety announcements.
Good morning, everyone. We have 10 members.
Your safety is of foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen to the following instructions. In the event of an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and 911 should be called. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell D down the hallway past the elevators. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. Thank you and have a safe day.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'd like to welcome the members that are joined virtually. I think I see Andrew Albert, Rob Mojica, Randy Glucksman, Lorraine, who else? And Harry Poor. All right, welcome, everyone. I'd like to start by offering the family of Michelle Go our deepest sympathies. My heart goes out to them, and I know she will be greatly missed by many. We were all so saddened to learn of her death. I understand that words can only offer little consolation at this time of grief. But this committee and this board can take action by working closely with the NYPD and the Adams administration to prevent this kind of senseless tragedy from happening again. Jano, I know you're working on many fronts to ensure that we can deliver New Yorkers the safest and best way to get around New York City. This committee looks forward to working together with everyone to make this happen. Jano, I turn the floor over to you.
So we haven't heard from our public speakers yet, and that's usually what we do first. But I don't normally attend the Transit Committee meeting, but I wanted to come because this is a moment of the utmost seriousness for our transit system. And we're also in an important moment because we are joined by the newly minted chief of the NYPD Transit Police, Jason Wilcox. And those two actions coming together in time, I just wanted to say a few words. To the committee and also to folks who are joining us virtually. The loss of, there's one thing that's at the top of everybody's mind right now about transit and about the city, and that's safety. The loss of police officer Jason Rivera and the critical injuries sustained by his partner, Wilbert Mora, have gripped the city and are in all of our hearts at this moment. This is a difficult time when you lose two of our police officers, at least lose one, and another is so critically injured. The city's also still reeling from the murder of Michelle Alyssa Go. And our riders are especially impacted. They're feeling unsafe. Our riders are feeling unsafe. While the kinds of terrible life-threatening incidents that happened last weekend in Times Square are infrequent numerically, we can't ignore that the ridership is feeling vulnerable, and especially because of these all too frequent interactions with New Yorkers struggling with mental health issues. It's a crisis that has been exacerbated by the pandemic. We have to be honest with ourselves. There have been a lot of discussions about safety here at the MTA. Weeks before Michelle Go was lost, I started a track trespassing task force because I didn't like what I was seeing in the trends. We have long had problems with folks electing to end their lives by jumping in front of a train. But in addition to that terrible problem, which we need to attack, we're also seeing more and more incidents involving this population of folks with mental health issues, not just the awful, awful tragedy that came upon Michelle Go, but routinely people who have these issues are getting on the tracks. We also that disturbing video of somebody literally standing on the tracks and dancing in front of a train that is speeding into a station, and then just acting out as if nothing had happened. And they're also numerically, we're seeing numbers that people are getting into the tunnels again, apparently because they're experiencing mental health issues. Now, in moments of crisis, it is the responsibility of government to take action. This is that kind of a moment. We have compassion for the most vulnerable people in our city, but we also recognize that our riders are coming to face with a crisis, and something must be done. We're fortunate to have a governor and a new mayor who are both intensely focused on this issue. Mayor Adams has been on the job just a few weeks, and one of his first actions was, even before the Times Square incident, but even before, he stood with the governor and committed to prioritizing safety in the subways. That was huge. Likewise, the governor's commitment to deploy new mental health professionals into the system, which is starting this week. The new chief of police, Kichan Sewell, has been great to work with. I've been in touch with her constantly. And now she's appointed Jason Wilcox as the new NYPD transit chief, and I am excited to work with him and his team. Mr. Wilcox, Chief Wilcox, and I have talked about the need for constant communication between the MTA and the NYPD, not just monthly briefings at our board meetings, but weekly and even daily interactions on the full range of operational issues. This is the way we can help each other, by sharing data, identifying which stations have trouble spots, where this vulnerable population is located, how deployments could be adjusted to keep riders safe, how we can improve communications between our personnel, train operators, conductors, people who are seeing things, and first responders in the event of emergencies, but just routinely when they see things that require police intervention. With Jason Wilcox at the helm, I'm confident we're going to be able to get it done for the riders. We agree on one thing, that we want people to be able to travel safely. That is non-negotiable. It's critical to the future of our city. We have to allow people to get back to their normal lives. And if they're scared to travel on mass transit, they can't. It's that simple. Now, New York faces crises periodically. We've all been through this. Jason and I were just reminiscing about the fact that we both lived for a time, around the same time, in the Manhattan Valley, southern Harlem area during the crack epidemic. And that was a tough era, but we turned around a city that had over 2,000 murders and reestablished safety with the leadership of the NYPD. We can do this. We need to be smart, we need to work together, and we need to focus on answers that are implementable now. So I'm going to turn it over back to Heda Mahaltzis, our committee chair, and just urge all of us to work closely with the NYPD to start solving the problem right now. Thank you.
Jano, thank you. Chief, welcome. We look forward to working with you. I think you'd like to say a few words.
I'm sorry. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee. It's a great privilege to be here this morning. Obviously, what's happening in our city is we are at a moment. We are at a moment. I am a lifelong New Yorker. I've lived here my entire life. Like the chairman said, I grew up on 107th Street off Amsterdam. I live in the Bronx now. My family, I was a city kid. My family never had a car, so how did I get around? Trains and buses. My family was on the trains every day. So I'm in my 34th, approaching my 35th year in the New York City Police Department. I come just the last several years from an investigative world, the Detective Bureau, where some of the detective squads I oversaw were the ones that deal with transit crime, deal with hate crime, and deal with transit special victims type crime. That's the world I'm coming out of. But prior to that, I would spend several years in transit. I was the CEO of Manhattan Transit. I was there from 2006 to 2013. I lived that world. I know the world. I was on the train every day. And that's one of the things I intend to do, is to be out there, that my officers on patrol see me, that the public sees me leading them. So obviously, the moment we are at now, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, is the statistical reality, and then there's the perception. So we are going to address both. You know, we will obviously, as police, we will continually try to prevent crime, but we are determined to make the riders of the subways in New York City feel safer. That is paramount. And how are we going to do that? We're going to continue to reinforce what transit cops know and do better than anybody: uniform train patrols. They will be on the trains, they will be on the platforms, they will be moving around Saturday night, Monday night, every day. You will see them. They will be there to protect you. They will be there to make you feel safer. And we are determined in that effort. And I look forward to working very closely with this committee, with this chair, and we are going to collaborate, we're going to communicate, we're going to coordinate, like the chair said, continually. This will be a partnership to make New York City, not just the subways, all of New York City, safer. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Pat, do you want to say a few words?
Thanks, Chair. It's hard to follow both the chairman and Chief Wilcox. I will just add that you've heard the passion about the security and the efforts that we're putting into it. I'll just highlight a couple of things that are going on already, and that will be reinforced as we go forward. So you've already heard that we have a strong relationship with not only the NYPD but also other elements of the city, in particular the Department of Homeless Services and Department of Homeless Social Services, as we begin to roll out efforts to support some of the outreach that's going on, whether it's for EDPs, especially disturbed individuals, or it's for people experiencing homelessness. We provide a lot of information to the city, which we get from our staffs, our train crews, our station agents, as well as our police and our counters to understand what is actually happening in the system, where it's happening, and then try to apply the resources to those locations. So we continue that robust communication with them. We have multiple significant events going on right now in the city. We certainly, in conjunction with the NYPD, this includes a large effort to try to work through the challenges in the Penn Corridor, the Herald Square area, and Times Square, as well as we continue our end-of-line operations during the evenings to try to make sure that people are getting to the shelters that they need to be, not trying to shelter in a system that's not designed for that. We also care significantly about what happens on our buses, not only for our riders, but also our employees in those systems. And so there's been a significant effort to start and improve train patrol or correction bus patrols as in order to support that mission there. So quite a bit going on, quite a bit of coordination going on. You heard the efforts about the state is putting in with their new SOS program. We're deeply involved in that. And we will continue to support all the missions of the city, as well as provide our own ideas about what we should do next. That's it.
Thank you, Pat.
Can I say something? Ada?
I'm sorry?
Randy here.
Randy, you want to do it now? You want to do it after public speakers?
No, I would just say that, in connection with putting the police back, as one who worked as a conductor and motorman back in the 70s, they call these 8 Ps. It was a very successful program, getting rid of making people feel safe on the subway, and I'm really glad that you're bringing it back. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. We'll now hear from our public speakers.
Good morning. We have 10 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there will be a warning beep to remind you that you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. The first speaker will be Hirsch Parek, followed by Christopher Greif.
Great, thank you. Good morning, members of the committee and to the MTA board and to all gathered here today. My name is Hirsch Parek. I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations for Aviation at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And it is a pleasure to join your committee meeting this morning virtually. I do want to just echo the sentiments that were offered about the tragic passing of Michelle Go, as well as the passing of the police officer, and the officer was also in critical condition. We at the Port Authority also extend our deepest condolences and sympathies to the families and to all of those that have been affected by these tragedies. I am here this morning to speak about the MTA bus relocation at JFK Airport that I believe is detailed and with much more information within the committee members' packets. But just for some awareness, the Port Authority is embarking on a nearly $20 billion redevelopment of JFK Airport, and that includes Terminal 5 and 6. The current MTA bus stop is in that vicinity, and so as the construction gets underway later this year, we will need to relocate that stop in order to accommodate both the construction, but also the users of those bus routes. So we will be relocating those that bus layover and stop area to the Lefferts Boulevard AirTrain station. And it's been a great partnership with the MTA staff and the Port Authority staff. And we look forward to continuing that to make sure that it creates as little inconvenience as possible for the customers and the users of those bus routes while the construction is underway. The changes will take effect on March 27th, and they will be in place for a couple of years. Again, the collaboration and the communication between our two agencies has been very seamless. So I appreciate this time and look forward to continued collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christopher Greif, followed by Charlton D'Souza.
Yes, good morning. I'm Christopher D. Greif, as a member of New York City Transit Rights Council and actor. One thing I wanted to say to thank to the NYCT and the MTA police during the R32 retirement train. As you were aware, the train, we want to make sure the train was running safe and had a lot of little kids on the train to have some fun. And they do want to thank them very much because of the safety. And, some people like to think it's funny to activate the train or spray paint something. It's not fun. We want to make sure those trains are running safely and having a good time. My other concern is during this weekend, there was a lot of communication problems there was supposed to be an F shuttle bus. Instead, we had extra B1 buses running like a Flatbush Depot, one vehicle, and a Fresh Pond. If we're going to be running shuttle buses, we need to have a little more communication between Avenue X and Stillwell Avenue, and the B1 bus does not get them to their destination. So if we're going to run some of those extra buses, they should be running parallel under the F line. So can we please work on that as well? But as a reminder to everyone, we do need to work together to keep the safety of all trains and buses for seniors and people with disabilities. Working together, we can do it. But remind you, that's why we have NCOs, community council meetings. We need to attend and try to make sure we work together, not fighting with the MTA, but reminding our elected officials today to say that we need more officers in the trains, on the buses, and more cameras on that as well. We need more additional cameras, but entering and off the train system. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charlton D'Souza, followed by Andy Pollock.
Good morning. My name is Charlton D'Souza. I'm the president of Passengers United. And yet again, we lost Michelle Go in the subway. And I'm devastated. My members are devastated. But here's what I want to know from the MT board. And here's what we're declaring: the subways are in a state of crisis, and they should be closed from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Because it's just out of control right now. And there should be one police officer assigned to a team of 2 social workers to start sweeping the terminals and doing sweeps on the trains. And then I want to know about the Bowery Residents Committee and this SOS contract. So is the Bowery Residents Committee still under the MTA? And if it's under the city, what I want to know is if the city and state giving them another contract. And why is that? Because the comptroller was investigating them and there was gross mismanagement found by the MTA's Inspector General. So I think they should break up the social service contracts to different agencies in different boroughs so there's more accountability. And then with the 200 property protection guards that you've hired making minimum wage, many of them are telling me that they don't feel safe doing this job. And then for the NYPD, there needs to be train order maintenance sweeps. Every time we see the police, we see like 10 police officers playing with their phones and doing nothing. So we need the police in the subway paying attention. And also, I do want to say this: auxiliary police are being used in the subway. And many of them have reached out to me because if something happens to them, they don't have a weapon. I respect that we have auxiliary police in the subways, but at the same time, are they being paired with an official NYPD officer? So we need to get our subway safety under control and stop the excuses. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Andy Pollack, followed by Jean Ryan.
Thank you, Lucille. Good morning, Chairman Lieber. Good morning, Commissioner Mahaltis. And good morning, President DiCarenzo. I would personally like to welcome Chief Wilcox as the new Chief of Transit. And I wish Chief O'Reilly best in her future endeavors. This is a very troubling time for our subway system. As Charlton just said, as a member of Passengers United, I am deeply devastated of what happened to Michelle Go recently. Obviously, a lot needs to be done. I'm hoping that with the new chief, we can work on trying to get coordination with neighboring police precincts on trying to get more officers to patrol the subway system. That is very important to start that neighborhood coordinating outreach program as soon as possible. Obviously, Mayor Adams has talked about it recently, trying to get more officers from the precincts to go down into the subway system. Also, I want to mention quickly the staffing shortages. I know it's been a troubling time, but recently the 510 QM1 bus that's supposed to leave from Midtown hasn't been getting as filled recently. So I'm hoping maybe in the next couple of weeks, College Point Bus Depot can figure it out how to get that bus running on its regular schedule in the future. So that's pretty much it. Thank you all very much, and I expect to speak again at CPOC later this afternoon.
Our next speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Michael Ring.
Hi, I'm Jean Ryan, President of Disabled in Action of Metropolitan New York. Bad things are going on with Access-a-Ride too. Access-a-Ride service is unreliable and terrible. Why is it okay to outsource service for people with disabilities? On demand. Allowing us to choose only one vendor means we cannot get a ride at all. We need to be able to choose 2 vendors, and even then, rides are not available for wheelchair users. My MTA Access-a-Ride app desperately needs to be upgraded. It is archaic and difficult to use and gives the wrong information. The number of Access-a-Ride complaints is deceptive because phone complaints to the number 8 complaint line can only be made Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. There are long waits and only 2 complaints can be made at a time. We have more, so why bother? Complaining to the same-day trip problem line, number 5, is not added into the complaint numbers. A lot of people assume that it is. And lastly, in December, an accessoride rider was waiting for 1 hour and 50 minutes for a night ride. As she was on hold with accessoride, she was mugged. The person gave her a black eye and her cell phone was stolen. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Ring, followed by Murray Bowden.
Hi, I'm Michael Ring. I want to deviate a little from my script first and say that I'm an accessoride user, and we just heard about all these tragedies on the subway. I'd like to thank the NYPD because I feel safer on the subway than I do in an accessoride van. Between the traffic and the way these drivers are untrained, the way they treat people, I'm happy to take the subway. And speaking of that, I had a very good day today, and I hope you all did too. I had a good day physically, so I was able to get on the train. I walked down the stairs at Grand Army Plaza, I changed at Nevins, I walked up the stairs here. It was great. Many of you probably took the subway here, maybe you walked here. I won't hold it against you if you got a ride here, it happens. But we all did one thing to get up here on the 20th floor, is we took the elevator. I want to play a little experiment with your minds. Imagine if you had to reserve that ride in the elevator on Friday. You had to make a phone call and tell someone when you wanted to go up. You had to tell them when you wanted to go down. And if you forgot to tell them you wanted to have lunch, you'd have to stay in the building all day because you won't have a way to get up and down all day. That's what people who use accessoride have to do. And that's why people who use accessoride don't have jobs, because they have to make arrangements for their transportation 2 days in advance. We are all here doing productive stuff. When I was on the subway this morning, I imagine that 99% of the people on the train with me were on their way to work or to school. There's people in this room who probably have access to the real information. Productive New Yorkers take the train. We don't clog up the streets with vehicles. It's unsustainable, it's unsafe, and healthy people who just can't use stairs are being unproductive because they're stuck at home. So hurry up, finish the elevators so everyone can get a job. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Murray Bowden, followed by David Cooperberg.
My name is Murray Bowden. This is my commitment to safety. This is my winter jacket. This is my winter hat. When I walk around the streets, I want to make sure that your bus drivers, when I cross the street, can see me, or any other driver can see me. I'm committed to safety. I have to leave the meeting right after this because I have a cracked oil burner and the contractors are working to transition my house to propane because as an environmentalist and global warming, we're moving away from fuel oil. And since the boiler cracked 2 weeks ago, they've been preparing for us to use propane. Con Edison won't give us the gas. We will pipe for that. There needs to be a better commitment between buses, New York City DOT, New York State Department, and the Thruway to share resources. They are not separate entities. They need to work together and share. Well, in the cases, the Yonkers bus depot has to come out of the waterfront. The Thruway just took away the toll plaza near Stu Leonard's, and there's a long piece of land there with no houses. Now, it's not square, but there's a lot of it. And right across the Thruway is a gas station and 2 bridges. So that the concept of sharing resources because of global warming has to expand. The Thruway has to make the land available for the buses to be stored so they don't go down to Yonkers to the waterfront. The concept of sharing needs to happen. I apologize for leaving early. I will watch this on my TV when I get home. And thank all of the people who have helped me here. I appreciate it all.
Our next speaker is David Kupferberg, followed by Jason Anthony.
The Bronx Bus Network redesign final plan addendum was approved unanimously by the MTA board on December 15th. But I continue to have concerns. Port Morris is a known transit desert. Unfortunately, nothing will change. As that the BX15 is being cut back, it would have been logical to extend the route beyond the hub, as requested by Bronx Community Board 1, via St. Anne's Avenue to Bruckner Boulevard. The BX17 could then operate via Bruckner Boulevard instead of St. Anne's Avenue to its current southern terminus. It's common sense that the service planners know that Westchester County is undergoing their own bus network redesign. After all, the results of the online survey were released last month. What if Westchester County decides to no longer serve Boston Road and instead feed their riders within their county to the subway at Dyer Avenue? This should be the starting point, not to engage Westchester County in a tete-a-tete, but for negotiations and making the city limits less of a barrier between neighborhoods. The riding public usually doesn't care where their transit comes from. They simply wish to travel between point A and point B seamlessly. I must reiterate that if no riders would have to pay an additional fare, three-legged transfers would have to ultimately be approved by the MTA board. The documents presented to the public show no evidence that this would be the case. Should there be three-legged transfers connected to the Bronx Bus Network redesign, they shouldn't be kept secret. In conclusion, the Bronx Bus Network redesign could have had more comprehensive changes in order to make the final plan a better plan for all. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Good morning, Sarah, Craig, Frank, Demetrius, Lawrence, David, Victor, Lorraine, and Hilda. Jason Anthony here from Amazon Labor Union. Starting the year making positive headlines when I rode the subway back on New Year's Day with Mayor Eric Adams. When I rode the subway and seeing along him the situation that commuters like myself see every single day in the subway, and his commitment of appointing people who use public transportation is a positive sign. But at the same time, board members like Hilda, Lorraine, and Jamie hasn't been vocal in 2021 like Andrew, David, Randy, Norman, Neil, and former colleagues like Mitch Pally and Chuck Mudler, who has been suggesting for years platform doors to avoid incidents like the ones occurred in recent days. And especially, I want to address Lawrence Schwartz and Robert Mojica, who lives in Hudson instead of the MTA network, who has ties to former Governor Andrew Mark Cuomo and shouldn't be on the board due to scandals that they both are involved in. But I'm glad that 2021 got rid of Catherine O'Reilly, because she didn't do nothing good while in Transit PD, because she didn't comply with the mask force. But yours truly, Jason Anthony, will hopefully work with Jason Wilcox in improving this and other things that we will talk offline. So I'll see you guys on CPAC.
Our next speaker is Lisa Daglian.
He's a hard act to follow. Good morning, I'm Lisa Dagley, and I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. It's so encouraging to see service returning as transit workers return from the Omicron wave. Many thanks to our heroes who've continued to keep the region moving throughout the pandemic. Over the weekend, Jano gave heartfelt remarks about how mass transit in this city is about equity. He spoke about important projects like the second phase of the 2nd Avenue subway, connecting people in subway deserts to jobs and opportunity, about Penn Access and how it will finally give people in Co-op City a commuter rail option, and about increasing participation in fair fares. We echo that and ask the city to consider changing the eligibility criteria to the higher New York City poverty level to more accurately reflect the cost of living here. We'd also point out that Atlantic Ticket and upcoming City Ticket pilot program are designed to provide more affordable and equitable access to more transit options and opportunity. But none of this will matter if people are afraid to ride. The crimes we've heard about that culminated with the murder of Michelle Alisigo are giving many people second thoughts about getting on subways, opting for driving, rideshare, or even staying home. That's not an option for essential workers and those of us who refuse to live in fear. Michelle Go's murder was a wake-up call, and riders have sounded a clarion call for action because we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. Thanks to Mayor Adams, Governor Hochul, the MTA, and the police for responding in kind. The announcement of the SOS initiative by Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams came before the terrible tragedy, but in recognition of the intensive outreach that is essential to reach homeless individuals and those with mental illness. We're glad to see expedited deployment of those teams. Jano concluded his remarks by saying the community needs to feel safe and to be able to use the subway to come back to rebuild the city. We couldn't agree more. Welcome, Chief, and thank you. We pledge to work with you. Thank you so much.
That concludes our public comment. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers. I will now make a motion to approve the minutes for the December 2021 meeting. Victor, do I have a second? Rob, Jamie, thank you. All those in favor? Great, thank you. Motion passed. Okay. Thank you. Let's move to approve the 2022 committee work plan. Craig, are there any changes from the 2021 work plan for 2022?
There are no changes to the work plan.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on the 2022 committee work plan? Nothing? Okay. And now I'll make a motion to approve the 2022 work plan. Rob, Jamie, second. Thank you. All those in favor? Motion passes. Craig, you want to start us off with the president's report?
Thank you. So I'd like to start off our first meeting of 22 with our current ridership numbers and the state of our services. Our latest ridership numbers are coming in at 3.8 million riders, or 48% of our 8 million pre-pandemic daily riders. For a little more context, our subway ridership high prior to the Omicron variant hitting New York City was 3.4 million, or 60% of pre-pandemic. Buses high before Omicron was 1.5 million, also 60%. And we had 22,000 paratransit trips on October 6th, or about 80% of pre-pandemic. Prior to December, when Omicron hit, we continued the upward performance trend that we have been discussing for the last 3 months. However, similar to every industry across our country, the transmissibility of the Omicron variant had an effect on our crews beginning in mid-December. While these last 6 weeks have been challenging for all of us, as I have been saying since August, this New York City Transit leadership team has remained laser focused on providing the best service possible to continue to support New York City's recovery. Towards that end, as we began to see the impacts of Omicron, we strategically forecasted and made schedule adjustments so that we were able to continue to provide strong service across our system for our customers that rely on us 24/7. I am now happy to say that the Omicron-induced crew shortages that began in December and spiked during the first week of January are now appearing to trend down. The latest indicators show new daily COVID positives are flattening, and the employees are returning to work at a higher rate compared to when the variant hit. And as of this morning, we have returned the last of our suspended lines, the W, back to normal weekday service. Even under our availability constraints, New York City Transit delivered consistent service at all 472 subway stations and 16,000 bus stops. I'm grateful to all our employees and members of the leadership team whose hard work ensured that we continue to provide approximately 85 to 90% of scheduled service for approximately 45% of ridership during the spike of those absences. In order to get past this challenge, we attacked the crew shortage issue on multiple fronts. We set up a reporting and project management oversight system to keep the leadership team informed of absences and trends so that we could remain nimble and provide the crews where they were most needed. We partnered with our unions. We set up regular communication and close monitoring at our crew offices and implemented strategic changes to scheduled service with the primary goal of maximizing the effectiveness of our crews and continuing to provide good, consistent service across the entire network. I want to thank Judy and her team, who wrote these supplement schedules on nights and weekends despite their own COVID battles, enabling us to maximize crews with minimal impacts to our scheduled headways. And as soon as we implemented these changes, we immediately began planning to resume service so that we would be ready as soon as enough employees returned to work. On Wednesday of last week, we returned service on the A, B, J, Z, 6, and 7 lines, and like I said, the last of the suspended lines this morning, the W, have resumed. We are still experiencing absences above what we experienced pre-Omicron, but I am optimistic that the worst is behind us all. I'm grateful to all our employees, those transit heroes and sheroes that have been here since day one of this pandemic, and to this leadership team who work hard. Focus and dedication allowed us to navigate these difficult circumstances. And to our customers who continue to use our system, we are here for you, as well as to those who continue to return. And finally, our prayers go out to the families and friends of Michelle Go. This tragedy only underscores the importance of our partnership with Chief Wilcox and the Adams administration to address safety in our system. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions for Craig? Rob?
Just one question, Craig. First of all, congratulations on all the tremendous effort that you've been putting forward. Let me ask, in terms of the expected percentage ridership that's in the midline, the midpoint of the McKinsey report, what is that number that we're aiming for 22? And perhaps we could, maybe in subsequent meetings, talk about how we're doing in comparison to that midpoint projection.
Sure. So actually, the midpoint for 22, I don't have in my head. I know the final midpoint that goes out 2024. I'm not sure if Judy or Demetrius has that for the 22 number. No? Can we get back to you on that?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll have further discussion. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, I now turn it over to Demetrius, who will discuss subways.
Good morning, Ada. Craig. We'll start with an overview of performance. Department of Subways performance in December was impacted by the regional rise in COVID cases associated with the Omicron variant. Prior to Omicron, we averaged about 400 service delivery personnel out sick per day. At the peak in late December, the number of service delivery employees carried as sick and not available for service increased to nearly 1,700. We responded with proactive measures to ensure even and consistent service for all our customers. We strategically chose to suspend a few weekday-only supplemental and express services that all provided redundant service, and this allowed for our crew office to undertake this enormous task of redistributing crews to ensure that service was maintained at every station. While we know that some individual trips were more affected than others, the average customer using a suspended service experienced an average of only 1 to 3 minutes of additional journey time. We are glad to have had enough crews to return to work that we fully restored service to the A, B, J, Z, 6, and 7 lines, and as of last week and today, we restored the W. Prior to the Omicron surge, we saw positive signs of performance continuing an improving trend that began in the fall. Service delivered for the first 2 weeks of December was 91.7%, 2 percentage points better than the full month, while on-time performance was 0.7% better. Even with the impact of the surge, full month December on-time performance of 80.7% was better than 2 years ago, 2019, before the pandemic began. Similarly, additional platform time was 20 seconds faster than 2 years ago. Our incident response also remains strong, with the average major incident duration down 3.5 minutes and the average trains delayed per incident down 17%. I'd also like to take a moment to highlight the significant improvements in MDBF, mean distance between failure, thanks to the efforts of our Division of Car Equipment, led by Chief Mechanical Officer Sue Coe. MDBF was nearly 169,000 miles in December, an 8% increase over last month, and a 25% increase compared to December of 2019. Sue and her team have focused their efforts on improving specific fleets, and those efforts are paying off. So while discussing the fleet, I'd be remiss if I didn't speak on the beloved R32s, for which we celebrated its retirement with special trips in December and early January. These cars served New York City since 1964 through dramatic changes in the subway system. Over the past 6 decades, they ran on every line in the B division and the leaded lines. It's a testament to the maintenance teams responsible for these cars that they remained in good condition over 6 decades, outlasting 4 other younger car fleets. Although it's time to say farewell to our oldest cars, we are looking forward to the delivery of the R211 fleet, which will usher in a new era of technology and comfort for our customers. As we continue to recover from the latest COVID surge, we look forward to resuming the trend of improving service that began in mid-2021. I'd like to thank the heroic subway workforce. Craig stole the heroes and sheroes. You can't top that. The amazing work that the heroic subway workforce for their efforts and flexibility through these difficult times, and for continuing to do their part to keep New York moving. That's it.
Thank you, Demetrius. Any questions for Demetrius? Okay, great. If not, yes, I'm sorry. Bob, we got your answers.
Well, I got the answers, technology. So the McKinsey for subways had projected by the end of the first quarter in the high 60th percentiles, growing to 85 percentile by the end of the year. That was the original McKinsey estimates.
That's the midpoint?
Yes, that's the midpoint.
Work to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Got to get everyone back. Okay, let's go to Frank to update us on buses and paratransit.
Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Frank.
As we ended 2021 and kicked off 2022, we were reminded of the importance of remaining vigilant against the Omicron variant causing a surge in COVID-19 cases. The surge affected the MTA as well as the other transit agencies across the United States. At the end of December, daily operator absences for buses were 1,300 above normal pre-COVID levels, peaking in early January at approximately 1,700 over pre-COVID absentees. This came as we were already working to mitigate existing operator shortages. At the At the beginning of December, service delivery was approximately 94%, in line with November's improving performance. As a result of the COVID surge at the end of the month, overall service delivery in December was 92.5% for approximately 57% of pre-pandemic ridership. We have worked closely with our union partners to strategically curtail schedules, suspend limited service as needed, and prioritize operator assignments to minimize customer impacts. As a result of tackling these challenges head-on, we continue to provide service for our customers to all 16,000 stops and 329 routes across all 5 boroughs. Despite these challenges, December saw a slight improvement in customer journey time over November. The latest indicators leave us cautiously optimistic that the COVID-19 cases are flattening as employees are returning to work at a higher rate. Also, last year, we hired over 1,200 bus operators and continue to stay laser-focused on training and hiring of operators to return to pre-COVID vacancy levels. As we emerge from the pandemic and look toward the future, it is certain that buses will be critical to New York's recovery, and we must do everything we can to encourage ridership. I would like to congratulate and welcome a key partner in our efforts, Ydanis Rodriguez, who was appointed as the new New York City DOT Commissioner. As Craig presented at the December board, 2022 will be a defining year for buses. Together with DOT, we have ambitious plans for the year ahead. I think we all agree that an investment in buses is an investment in equity. As we welcome back our customers, we are looking forward to working closely with this committee, as well as our city partners and advocate community and elected officials to deliver the bus priority we need to move New Yorkers who need us the most. That concludes the bus report.
Thank you, Frank. Any questions for Frank on the bus report? Okay. If not, Frank, you're going to continue with paratransit?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So industry driver shortage is further impacted by the recent Omicron surge, continue to pose challenges at the national and local levels. We recognize significant impact these have on our service performance and our customers, and we continue to work daily with our brokers and our carriers to find innovative solutions to improve our service. We also remain laser focused on ramping up broker services to provide increased capacity. Since the end of last year, we've made strategic efforts on multiple fronts to improve the service, including the declaration of immediate operating need to fast-track procurement of supplemental paratransit services and providing MTA ad space for our primary carrier hiring campaigns. We are also soliciting recently retired bus operators who may be seeking job opportunities. Additionally, we are in the process of amending our commercial agreements to incentivize performance. We continue to work closely with our brokers and carriers to meet demand and push for service scheduling improvements also. November showed some clear improvements for primary carrier service against the prior month. On-time performance improved by 3% for primary carriers, while brokers in November service remained relatively flat. Primary carrier no-shows per 1,000 scheduled trips also improves significantly. Broker no-shows, however, increased as we ramped down from our broker curb and transferred trips to our existing new vendors. Complaints remained flat against the prior month. In November, we saw COVID-related dip in average weekday ridership to 74% of pre-pandemic levels, and then down to 71% in December. Despite the related dip in ridership and reduction in driver availability, preliminary December performance results show that our aggressive efforts to improve the service are promising. We are optimistic as we welcome our customers back in 2022 that we will see a continued improvements because of the actions taken by this team. That includes the paratransit report.
Thank you, Frank. Any questions? Yes, Victor.
Thank you, Hada. Hello, Frank. How are you? Thank you for your report.
Good morning.
Frank, so you mentioned that Curb is out now. So what are we doing to get other brokers on?
So actually what we have done is we've increased the capacity of our CTG as one of our main brokers. And then also we're working with our two new brokers, Century and Arrow. And Century's actually ramping up nicely to help cover between CTG and Arrow to cover the trips that we lost when we ramped out Curb. We're also right now we're working on two supplemental contracts, one of them being very close to the finish line. We're working, Lou Montante's group is working very hard to get us there, and we have a second one that's in the works. So all of this should help meet the demand that we lost with Curb.
Yeah, big concern for me is seeing that ridership is low right now, and then once ridership comes back, hopefully we get through this wave soon, it's going to be up. So I just want to be prepared to really get that broker service, more brokers in since Curb is out, and just really be prepared for the next wave of riders to come back. Because as you know, paratransit has come back a lot faster than any other service, ridership.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, the reduction in ridership was far less than we saw at the other modes in paratransit. And, it's a good point you made. What's encouraging is, though, through these initiatives we've taken with our brokers early on in December, before we really started seeing the dip in ridership with Omicron, our preliminary shows that these actions were helping us, right? And it was starting to improve performance. So we're confident, though, although that our ridership is less, We did lose some, naturally some drivers on the broker side because of COVID. As we return back to full, these initiatives that we're taking will also be there to help meet that.
And incentivizing, you talked a little bit about that. Could you
Yes.
just touch on that for me?
So, yeah, I mean, right now, we're in the middle of finalizing that in our contract, so once they're finalized,
Okay.
I can get more in detail with you, but in different ways, we've incentivized our contractors, our brokers, to prioritize our service, and it looks like it's going to be it's so far, the early signs, it's successful.
Great, I look forward to seeing that. And then the other thing is we heard some advocates speak a little bit earlier, and, waiting an hour and a half, an hour and 50 minutes, I think is just, needs to be addressed, and figure out a quicker way to get people options, either that, automatically give them a voucher after a certain amount of time. So I encourage you to kind of look at that and figure that out. And I know people in my office, if they weren't in my office, to be waiting outside, calling, and getting through to the service. And I know there's probably a backlog on that. So I encourage you to kind of take a deeper look into that and just make sure we can streamline people's rides quicker and faster.
Absolutely, we're on it, the team's on it.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Frank? Okay, thank you, Frank. Kumail, you want to update us on accessibility?
Sure thing. Thank you, Ada. Good morning. This month, I'd like to use my update to outline our team's priorities or pillars and key projects under each, which we will update the committee on throughout the year. Our first pillar or priority this year is around design and working towards uniform, accessible design standards for all of our modes of services. In 2022, we look forward to putting the first R211 subway cars into customer testing and rolling out additional new buses with flexible seating designs to accommodate customers with walkers, folded strollers, etc. We will continue opening new ADA stations in both our subways and commuter rail systems, including the recent opening of new elevators at 170th Street Station on the 4 line in the Bronx, a great addition to the accessible station map. Our team will work across departments and with agency partners such as New York City DOT to ensure the best accessibility features and technologies are deployed more widely across our systems and work towards design standards that meet the access needs of all of our customers. This will include work on new infrastructure and retrofitting our existing stations and rolling stock for increased accessibility. Our second pillar is effective communications and ensuring that information we present to our customers is fully accessible to all, including our blind and low vision, as well as deaf or hard of hearing customers. In 2022, we look forward to continued testing of smartphone apps that assist customers with wayfinding and navigation through our partnership with the Transit Tech Lab. We will also be testing hearing loops on buses and are excited to see more buses deployed with digital information screens, which will also help us enhance access to information while riding on our buses. As we continue to replace elevators in our systems, we will ensure that elevator status information is available across the platforms and throughout the customer journey, so customers are aware of these outages and have the resources they need to plan their travels accordingly. Our third pillar revolves around our most important asset, our employees. We are also working every day to improve training and resources for MTA personnel on accessibility and tools for servicing our customers with disabilities. Based on the work from New York City Transit's system-wide accessibility team, this year we will be developing and deploying an MTA-wide training for all employees, as well as additional resources to support the thousands of employees who interact with customers with disabilities and access needs each day. And as we continue to expand our vision for accessibility with initiatives like the AutoGate access, expanded Omni fare payment offerings, and the first wide fare gates coming into service this year, we will continue working with our partners in the Department of Subways and across the agency to ensure our colleagues can assist our customers in navigating these changes. Finally, our fourth pillar focuses on the continuation of working towards an accessorize paratransit service that provides the reliability, flexibility, and utilization of technology that our customers demand and deserve. This year, we will be rolling out Omni new fare payment systems to paratransit customers. This exciting change will allow accessorize customers to travel without cash for the first time, making travel faster and more convenient for all. We are very excited to start the ARR Omni rollout in the coming months. We will also be working with our partners in IT to continue to make enhancements to the accessorize platforms and My MTA app and website. to streamline the booking and trip tracking process, and again, leverage technology to make our service more efficient and customer friendly. We look forward to customer feedback on all these changes as they take effect, and to continue to update this committee and the board on our progress. Thank you.
Mr. Calise.
Thank you, Hada. Thank you, Kamel, for the report. Just wanted to talk a couple of different things. Finally seeing Omni come out. I think it's long time coming when everyone else had it earlier, so it's good to see that there's some direction there. Good to hear you talk about ways that we can improve Access-a-Ride. Look forward to further those discussions. You mentioned loop systems in buses. Can you talk about when that's going to be rolled out, how many buses it's going to be on? If you have those answers, it'd be great.
We've been looking into this for some time now. Loop system is one of the things that we're testing. We've heard from our constituents, particularly the hard of hearing deaf clients, that loop systems aren't all that they're interested in, but we're focusing on it because it is important to some of our customers. I can get back to you with a specific rollout and implementation of that, unless, Frank, you have something to add there.
No, I think it's best we get back to them with the details because we're still.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Yeah, I did have another question, but I'll come back and ask later if I remember. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Q. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Sarah for an update on strategy and customer experience.
Hi, Hada. So in December, I wanted to just brief the committee a little bit on that we relaunched the MTA's open data program, part of our renewed commitment to transparency and our legislative obligation to share our data publicly. Working closely with the open data team at the New York State Office of Information Technology Services, we've published a number of new data sets on the state open data portal. We're on track to submit approximately 50 data sets in total for publishing by the end of January. And in parallel, we've begun developing a 3-year plan for sharing this data, which we expect to publish in April. You can read more about the evolving program and status on the Open Data microsite at new.mta.info/open-data. I wanted to recognize Molly Washam, Mikhail Sheikh, and team who took on this work in addition to their regular expanded daily duties. Also wanted to just thank our regular Mask Force volunteers on December 17th. Joined again by MTA leaders, community volunteers, and fellow colleagues when we distributed free masks throughout the system. Wanted to draw everybody's attention to the fact that Mask Force will be tomorrow, Tuesday the 25th. So if you're in the subway or bus system and want to give out some masks, please feel free to contact us. We'll give you masks and a most amazing yellow merchandise. It's our favorite color, you guys know that. We'll get us out and giving masks out to all of our customers who need them. Beyond Mask Force, the Strategy and Customer Experience team supported the introduction of COVID-19 PCR testing at 10 subway and railroad stations last month. We've now vaccinated and tested tens of thousands of our customers and riders. And I'd like to also acknowledge the many hours put in by a contact center management, our Access-a-Ride call center staff, and supporting teams to address the large increase in calls to our employee COVID-19 hotline in December as positivity rates increased. Despite that, also pleased to note that our telephone contact center performance improved in December, average call wait time decreasing 12% versus November 2021, and the calls answered rate increasing from 74.1% to 72.4%. As you all know, we've been continuing to focus on both contact center staffing levels and system upgrades to further improve those numbers. Customer complaints about subway service increased last month to 3.89 per 100,000 journeys, up 10.7% versus November 2021, but 13.4% lower than December 2020. Bus complaints also increased 5.3% to 12.86, 11.2% higher than December 2020. We all know that these numbers, especially in the winter, do trend to climb up, but we're also doing everything we can to mitigate these complaints and make our customers feel safer. I would also like to mention that our marketing teams are hard at work on renewing our safety campaigns, working with NYPD, DHS, 311, the 911 system on strengthening our procedures and protocols. More to come Wednesday at board on that front. That's all for today, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah?
I have,
Oh, Lorraine, is that you?
Hi, Lorraine.
I have two questions, one for Sarah, one for Kamel, because I wasn't able to raise my hand fast enough. First of all, thank you, Sarah, always. But I wanted to offer consideration on these mass task force that you have. Seeing that they have been effective in the past, is it possible to consider them as customer service and trying to train them to do some other functions, again, as we're trying to improve perception of more participation of MTA for our ridership? I think I just would like you to consider that and see what the limitations are. So I offer that to you.
Noted, and thank you. And part of discussions that Craig and Demetrius and Pat Warren and the chairman are having around how to make our own MTA personnel a little bit more visible on platforms and in stations, and working also with our union partners. There's a lot in here, right? A lot around safety, a lot around existing work roles. And so we're doing our best to get as much presence working with the NYPD right now, but then rolling out some new programs and pilots to get more presence on platforms and in stations. With the volunteers from Mask Force, that's a really interesting idea. A lot to consider there as well, but would love to take that back and talk with the team. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. And Kamel, I wanted to go back to one of the statements you made, which was about this elevator digital alert system particularly for those who need that in terms of paratransit. What I'm interested in, what is going to be the potential rollout for that and the target date for that rollout? And secondly, can we target those communities? Obviously, my issue is the Bronx, where we have these vast number of stations that are inaccessible in between stations. So is there something that we can, if you're going to start rolling this out and testing it, to test it in those kind of large, inaccessible transit deserts?
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I don't think I quite understand your question. So are we talking about real-time elevator information, which I mentioned about, or are we talking about alerts and reimagining the paratransit system there? Because you mentioned both.
As part of, first of all, thank you for your report. But as part of your report, you talked about an elevator alert rollout.
Yeah.
And my question to you was what I asked earlier. What is the time frame for that? And secondly, could it be targeted in those areas where we have large or vast transit inaccessibility areas, such as the Bronx on the number 6 line?
Got it. Thank you. So we currently have systems installed in most of our elevated stations. What we're looking to enhance is at stations where we currently don't have our systems installed yet, we will be installing new technologies to help us monitor the status of those elevators, and when they do go out of service, give us the opportunity to report that to our customer on a much quicker pace than we have, working with, like Sarah said, our employees on the stations and getting real-time information to our customers. So that will be focused primarily at stations that don't have the operating technologies today. The Bronx is in really good shape, though. Our elevators in the Bronx, we do know their status, and we have mechanism installed in just about all of them there.
Right, but my point is, if I understood you correctly, and if I didn't, I apologize for that. My understanding from your report was that this was a system that customers would access, so that if I knew that I was getting off on Zariga Avenue, and I knew that by the time I got to Parkchester, that I would not get off at Parkchester and take the bus to Zariga, and know that I would have to go to Pelham to take the bus back to Zariga. So That's what I thought the alert system was going to provide customers. If I'm mistaken by that, I apologize.
No, you're right on target. So the short answer will be yes. We will definitely be working with Sarah's team and IT to provide those alert to all of our customers, and of course the Bronx will definitely be part of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we move on to safety and security. Bobby?
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. When comparing the most recent 12-month period to the previous one, subway customer accident rates increased. It is worth noting that these 12-month rates have decreased each month since March of 2021. Bus collisions, customer accidents, and injuries increased when comparing the most recent 12-month period to the previous one. Although customer accidents and injuries show decreases on a monthly basis when compared to the previous year. Employee lost time accidents showed a decrease when comparing the most recent 12-month period to the previous one. Although we continue to see an increase in subway fires when comparing the last 12-month period to the previous one, December 21 fires decreased when compared to the previous year. I'm going to stop here right now and ask Chief Wilcox to please give us the crime report. Chief?
So, thank you again. Just as I was listening to some of the comments and the conversation, I just want to take a moment. Obviously, it's a very somber and sad time for our city and also for the NYPD, so I want to thank everyone in this room and also listening for your support and your prayers with the horrible crime that happened Friday night, with the tragic death of Jason Rivera, and obviously Officer Will Mora is in our prayers as well. So thank you for that. So obviously the conversation again is the perception of fear, and then also the statistical analysis, which I'm going to just go over right now. Last year, and I want to, we're at the beginning of the new year, so I can kind of take a look back over the calendar year of 2021, where our major crimes in transit were up about 1%, but we saw reductions in robbery, larcenies, burglaries. So it's an interesting number, the 1%, because when you compare, it's being compared to the year of 2020 when ridership was suppressed. When you look at the major crime number from last year and you compare it back to 2019, 2018, you're really looking at about a 30% reduction in major crime. So 2021, we saw about 4.8, so less than 5 major crimes a day in the transit system. And when you compare that to just, say, 2019, 2018, and even going back to 2011, when we averaged about 7, 2001, about 10 a day, 1997, the 90s, we're talking about almost 4 times as many, like 17 crimes a day. That's a significant accomplishment by the men and women of the Transit Bureau. And I want to acknowledge the leadership of Chief Kathleen O'Reilly as part of that, who was the Transit Bureau Chief of Transit at the time. An amazing accomplishment. I've known her going almost 2 decades, and I'm privileged to be following her as the Chief of Transit, as she takes on a role of great significance as the Chief of Patrol for the New York City Police Department. So one of the areas that we did see in calendar year an increase in was felony assaults, and it was noted in the media, and we acknowledge that. So the felony assaults were up about 27% last year, of 461 incidents versus 361. About a third of those involve cutting instruments. So obviously that's something we're going to be looking very hard at. With that number, it has to be acknowledged that arrests for felony assault in transit were up 52% last year. 347 arrests for felony assault last year in transit. 428 arrests for cutting instruments in transit last year, a 67% increase. So So what's happening there? What's increasing those arrests? Two things. One, the swift response of the officers who respond to those incidents and quickly make an arrest at the scene. And also, from what I saw in my detective bureau world, really dedicated, diligent, and excellent investigations by the detectives that look at transit crime and make arrests on significant incidents that we saw last year, whether it's a stabbing in transit, whether somebody gets pushed in front of the train. Fantastic detective work, very dedicated members. So the effort is there, and we will continue, obviously, to address those felony assaults. We look at them very closely, and we investigate them incredibly. So just, the numbers, though we've seen a slight increase, when you compare it, when you look at a more global, a larger perspective, the crimes are, in many areas, are down. We're going to continue to focus on that. But we'll also, I mentioned earlier, obviously the perception of fear. That is obviously our primary goal right now, is to work with everyone, not just in this room, but everybody listening, everybody in the communities, everybody that are doing active work in the transit system, private organizations, the city, the state, local community leaders, politicians. We're all going to work together to make our subways safe. It's a team effort. We have a great team in the NYPD Transit Bureau. We are going to reach out and work hard with everybody listening here to make transit safer. Does anybody have any questions?
Chief Wilcox,
when you have a chance.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Andrew, I got you. After Bob.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
I also want to express that I think that Kathleen O'Reilly did a terrific job working with the board. I think she made available information that the board had been interested in, and worked with us in a way that was dramatically improved things. And so I really think that there was a positive move during the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months, however many months that was, that we were working more closely. And I look forward to continuing that effort with you.
Thank you.
Let me say that I think that there are 4 things that I hear on a regular basis that people complain about. And everyone, I understand the incredible effort that the police officers are making in the subways, outside, and all of the risks all over the nation that people are facing during the COVID crisis. But there are 4 things that people are concerned about, and I think you're working in that direction. But one is a police presence on platforms. I think there's no question that people want to see police on the platforms, and anything you can do to help deliver that, I think, would be useful. Second, they really want to see police on trains, and they want to see them moving through the cars, and I think that will be very, very helpful in terms of public reaction. There also is a problem of, I've heard people complain of groups of police officers congregating together in certain specific spots, and I think that gives a sense of a feeling that they're not on the trains, they're on platforms, they're congregating together. I think anything that can be done on that would be useful. And the final thing is, I've heard any number of people complain about police officers not wearing masks. And I think that element of 100% compliance with mask wearing, where the public is very good. I think that by and large, 98, 99% of people on the subways wear masks. I think that the police officers should be participating in that, and anything that can be done in that area, I think, would be helpful in terms of public perception.
No, thank you. So, as I said earlier, really the foundation that we're going to build on and continue to build on is uniform train patrols. Officers on the trains, on the platforms, moving around, highly visible, proactive. That's really going to be the foundation of everything we're going to do. We're determined to do that, uniform train patrol. Everything else will be built around it, but that is the foundation of our moving forward strategy, 100%. Obviously, the wearing masks are vitally important to helping to suppress COVID, Omicron. We're committed to that, and we will continually drill that down and emphasize that, the importance of that to our officers on patrol. We will do that.
Andrew, you had a question?
Sure. Thanks, and welcome, Chief Wilcox. I remember working with you many years ago.
Yes, sir, it's been a while. I do remember.
Yes.
It's good to see
Great
you.
to see you again. So while I absolutely understand people wanting to see police on platforms and on the trains, and I think that should happen, I know that 99.99% of people that are causing crime in the system didn't pay their fare. So if we have police stationed at the turnstiles, not only are we improving the MTA's bottom line, but we're likely stopping a lot of the crime. So I think they should also be police officers at the turnstiles. I had this discussion with Chief Delatorre many years ago. While I was on the phone with him, 12 people came through the slam gate. So I think we need to get a handle on that problem as well.
No, listen, I understand that, you know, I've been riding the subway since I was a kid. I understand that. But just, you know, to that point, you know, transit officers, we saw a 115% increase in fare evasion summonses, tabs issued last year. So we get it, I understand it, and we're committed to addressing that for sure. It's a matter of order that we will continually work on to maintain.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Albert. Andrew.
Great. Thank you, Chief. I personally want to thank you for coming today and
Thank you.
stressing the commitment of how we can make things better from this moment forward. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay. If not, I think we're going to move on to Judy. She has some brief service changes.
Yes. So this month there is one service change staff summary in your books. This is for board information only. Due to redevelopment at JFK Airport, the B-15, Q3, and Q10 bus routes will need to be temporarily changed. This redevelopment will permanently eliminate the MTA's use of the space at Terminal 5, currently used as the terminal for these three routes. During the redevelopment project, these routes will be temporarily rerouted. All three routes will terminate at the Lefferts Boulevard AirTrain station, where riders will be able to transfer for free to the Howard Beach branch of the AirTrain. The B-15 and Q10 stops in the central terminal area will be eliminated, and the Q3 stops at Terminal 5 will be relocated to Terminal 8. As part of the redevelopment of JFK Airport, there is a proposal to construct a new ground transportation hub within the airport's central terminal area. When it is completed, which will be no sooner than 2026, the terminal for the three routes will be relocated to the new hub. The net result of these changes would be a temporary decrease in annual operating cost of approximately $942,000 due to the route changes, their associated changes in travel time, and an increase in the Q3 service. Implementation of these service changes is planned for March 27th of 2022.
Thank you, Judy. Greg, any other items on our agenda?
There are no other items.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Victor? Second. Jamie? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming. See you on Wednesday.